Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley, Stevie Nicol, John Champion and Alejandro Moreno. A big revelation today regarding the Hillsborough disaster, as 6 people will be charged after 96 people, of course, lost their lives 28 years ago. Steve, you're on the pitch during that FA Cup semi-final. What do you make of today's revelations?
To be honest, I'm not sure whether my glass is half full or half empty, because, you know, 6 people have been charged. You can't tell me that the decisions that were made that caused the tragedy and then the cover-up after it involves just 6 people. In my opinion, there are many more people who should be getting charged, but clearly won't be. As for the 6 that are getting charged, I'm not 100% sure that anything much is going to happen to them. You know, it's taken 28 years to actually come up with what they think are 6 names that are responsible for this. So why would anybody think that they're actually going to come down hard on them? I'm not so sure they will.
John?
I think the biggest thing about today's announcement is that it brings some semblance of accountability to the process, probably for the first time, with so many things having taken so long to work through the various processes. There were obstacles put in the way from time to time as well, as we all now know, with the benefit of hindsight and history. And it's very easy for the likes of me to sit here glibly on a couch and talk about closure. And I'm not sure that if you've been through the horrors of Hillsborough and have lost loved ones, you ever get proper, full closure. But there is at least now an opportunity for long-suffering relatives and friends of the 96 to have some form of peace. Once the court process has been gone through, once sentences, if necessary, have been handed out, they will at least have that feeling that there is some form of penance on the part of those who've been deemed responsible for one of the most dreadful sporting tragedies of our lifetime.
Stevie, you befriended some of the people, of course, who were involved in the tragedy, relatives of those who passed. How significant is it for them today?
I think it's a small thing, to be honest. I don't think it's a huge thing. The Hillsborough tragedy, even without losing somebody, never leaves you. It's never going to close. There's never going to be any closure on it at all. But the fact that somebody is being held responsible is a small thing, in my opinion. And to be honest, and this is only my own opinion, I think outside of the 6 that are getting charged, there are people who turned this into people dying and blaming them. And in my opinion, the 6 that are being charged are not responsible for that. The 6 being charged are responsible for what happened at the stadium. What happened afterwards is very much somebody else's fault. I wish I could tell you who it is, but I can't. But there will be some people sitting watching this trial and thanking the lucky stars that they're not involved in it.
Your final thought on this, John?
I think, just to counterbalance what Steve says, the fact that we have reached this day, because there must have been many very dark days along the way where, in fact, getting this far seemed like a distant prospect for all the worst reasons, for reasons of obfuscation and, as people will describe it, a cover-up. We've gone beyond that. We have got a degree of clarity to an investigation, and we've got to the point where there are now proper court proceedings where the arguments and precisely what happened will be heard in a public forum. And for that, at least, I think we can be moderately grateful.
This, of course, this story has dominated the newspaper headlines in the UK. A couple of samples here. 10,301 days, a time for justice. This is the front page of The Independent. Also, Hillsborough, 96 deaths, 28 years, and now, finally, the first day of justice. Welcome back. After all the abuse we have given him on this couch, it's Claudio Bravo who turns out to be the hero for Chile as they book a place in the final of the Confederations Cup.
Anyone can save a penalty.
Anyone can save a penalty.
Hold on. He made a save of Silva after about 10 minutes.
It's a guessing game. We're talking about penalties here.
Well, you were.
When you get to penalties for the goalkeeper, it's a guessing game.
No.
Bluff, it is.
Some
that doesn't tell the story over a full
Some
game.
goalkeepers are statistically better, aren't they, at saving penalties than others?
It's a shame over a 90-minute Premier League game, the game's not decided on penalties, is it?
But you've still got to give him credit, surely, for it.
Well, he did well.
He's the hero.
There you go.
There
you go.
What's the argument?
Does that mean he'll be staying at Man City?
No, that wasn't the question. I didn't say because he did this, he's going to stay at Man City.
I'll shut up.
Well, good. That'll make a nice change.
Go on, kiss his backside again then.
Overall, did they deserve it, though?
Yes,
Chile?
they did.
Yeah?
Yes, they did. They were much the better team. And when you go into extra time, and I'll just go back to VAR for a second. Are you kidding me? A clear penalty. It's a clear penalty. It's a no-doubter. And somehow they don't go back. Why do they have this video available if they're not going to use it? This is beyond me. But overall, Chile were the better team. Portugal was what Portugal were in the Euros. The difference was that in this penalty session, Chile was better. They were able to get through. And yes, Claudio Barro.
I told you yesterday, they're just ironing out the problems with VAR. Don't get upset.
No, I'm not upset. I'm just saying, why are you going to have it available if you're not going to use it?
Here's the thing, Chambers. You're at the same seminar that I was given by Howard Webb.
Yes.
And Howard Webb said you only refer to VAR when it is a clear mistake.
He was very clear on it having to be clear.
And this is, I suppose, the problem in the grey area and why people like Ali are going to get frustrated.
Angry.
Because that wasn't a clear mistake, was it? Or how do you define
I don't think
a
it's
clear
clear.
mistake?
I mean, they're
because
talking
Stevie
about...
had to see it 3 times.
Yeah, so
Well,
I think
his glasses.
the first thing that Howard Webb said in the sort of UK side presentation, if you like, was he cited
Was that different from American side?
Well, that's what I'm about to find out from my good learned friend here, whether we got the same talk or a different one. But he said that the incident that changed his mind on it was the Thierry Henry handball in the France-Ireland playoff.
Yep.
And that was a clear match-changing incident, changed the course of a game, still talked about 8 years on. That's what they're trying to rule out. So the incident in the Chile-Portugal game didn't fall into that category.
It wasn't as clear, you didn't say.
No.
He steps on the player. How is that not a penalty?
So who decides if it's a clear mistake or not, then?
This is the problem. This is, again, the area.
Because if somebody's
So VAR in his ear will say, you might want to look at that again, and then it's up to the referee to decide whether or not he wants to look at it again.
But it's a brave referee that at that point says, no, I'm not going to look.
That's what they do in rugby.
Well, he's getting the call wrong. It's not a brave referee. It's a dumb referee that doesn't get the call wrong, doesn't get the call right, and doesn't use the technology that can help him. Are you kidding me?
Oh, calm down.
No, it's just... I just don't understand why we have the system if we're not going to use it.
Isn't the biggest thing about all this the fact it's so opaque and secretive? So you look at rugby, you look at cricket around the world, and you can hear the conversations between the officials. You know what they're looking at. They're in tandem with the TV match director. There's no communication between the televisual experience and the match officials, let alone the poor paying spectators in the stadium. So until that's sorted, I think it's got the potential for an awful lot of frustration. That's putting it...
Would you have called a penalty on that?
Would I have called a penalty on that? I probably would, given the balance of probability, but it's not the clear...
No, don't give me the balance of probabilities and big words and all that stuff. You know it's a penalty.
See, that's when it comes down to interpretation.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to have the top officials. You've got one sitting with all the technology, and he's... I mean, you can understand a mistake on the field.
Yep.
Somebody happens at full speed, you don't quite see it, or your view's blocked. But we've got some clown in the truck who's looking at it from all these angles, and he doesn't say to the ref, OK,
but here's the thing.
We don't know that.
I'm being a hypocrite because I'm getting upset with VAR. So
he may have said it to the referee, and the referee chose not to look at the replay, because VAR won't say it's a penalty. That's not their job.
Correct.
They'll say to the
you were
referee,
at a seminar.
They'll say to the referee, you might want to have a look at that again.
Yes.
Right, and surely you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that the guy's saying you may want to because he clearly thinks you've made a mistake.
Yes.
And then you go, no, you're all right. I mean,
well, this is where arrogance will come into it as well, because if some referee maybe has got an ego, and he'll say, well, I've sod that. I'm happy with my decision. I'm not looking at it. And I think that's going to be great. We're going to talk about it.
Let's just take it away from VAR at the moment.
Yes.
As a result of what happened in the penalty shootout, would you want Cristiano Ronaldo to come up and take a penalty earlier? Obviously, he was defined as the 5th penalty taker.
Surprise.
With hindsight, considering, obviously, Nani just looked... Yeah. You never would have money on Nani.
I would have designated him to take the first 3, by the looks of it.
Right. I think VAR would suggest he wants
the hit. He wants the headlines. headlines.
No, but you know what? But there's no headlines if you don't take a penalty at all.
I think when Nani is making his faltering way forward, and you're thinking,
Do rugby tackle him.
Yeah.
No.
I think you do. You bring out the shepherd's crook and hook him out of the way.
Have you not given your
surely-
list? Can you change? I
don't know, Stevie. Can you change it? You know these things better than us.
You can't change your
You
list.
never used to be able. As far as I know, you can't. Once you give the list in, you can't change it. As far as I know.
Right.
But listen, if I was still coaching, I'd be lobbying to change all that because that's not right.
Would you have had him fifth?
Initially, I would have had him fifth.
Right,
But
I
after they missed the first two, I would have had him on the third penalty. Absolutely, 100%.
You're actually thinking the coach has got a say in this decision.
Yeah,
It's a fair point, Craig. It's a fair point.
I think we should give Claudio Bravo some love.
Well, by the way, the 3 players that missed for Portugal were brought into the game. I suppose part of the reason was if they went to penalty, they would be penalty takers. So Quaresma and Nani Moutinho, these are guys that you think veteran players have been here before. They know what they're doing. I mean, when you miss 3 penalties, this game said match regardless.
Overall, it wasn't a very good game. No. Let's be honest about that. We'll be hoping for better on Thursday when Germany take on Mexico. Germany, as we've talked before, have taken a weakened side to this tournament, but the SPI still has them as favourites to advance to the finals. 65% for Jogi Löw's side. Is that right?
Well, the SPI, as we know, doesn't take into account injured players. It also doesn't take into account weakened sides at tournaments, I would imagine. So...
where are you going with
Where
this?
are you going today, Craig?
No, I haven't much love for the Confed Cup, as you well know. But I suppose we're at the business end of the I hope Germany wins, sod it.
Right, OK, good. 65%, Ali, is that about right for the Germans?
Maybe a little high for Germany. I think Mexico would suggest that they have a strong team in place, that Chicharito Hernandez back from what they thought was injury. They may miss a couple players because of injury. Diego Reyes, one of those guys. The issue with Mexico is whether they can play against a big-name team in a big event, in a big-name tournament. And it just hasn't happened historically for Mexico. They get up to this moment, they think they're going to get past a big team like Germany, and they come up short. Tomorrow is yet another challenge for Mexico, and maybe this is a time that they're able to get through, although I don't see it happening.
Right, OK, so you're going
1 second, if only we get a... Johnny,
right.
Why is the SPI... We've got a guy behind here, by the way. I'm not talking to myself. Why is the SPI 65% for Germany? Doesn't factor in lineups. Waste of time.
Right. Chambers.
Yes, Daniel. I go with Germany. I mean, I think the one thing that they've proven, it's no surprise to any of us that have watched them smooth their way through tournaments over the years, is that I think the first team are ranked 3rd in the world, aren't they? Well, this lot are probably in the top 15 in the world as well. You could enter them into an international tournament, and they do pretty well, as they're showing on
which
this
they've
front.
done, yeah.
But a proper international tournament, with the greatest respect, of course, to the Confederations Cup. But I don't think we can consider this to be a front-line top international tournament. It's a World Cup warm-up. It's more for logistical reasons than for sporting competitive reasons.
And see, this puts more pressure on Mexico and their coach.
Yeah, it does.
Primarily because if they go out to a full German team, then I don't suppose the Mexican fans would be particularly happy, but there's some acceptance. But to lose, if they do lose to this squad, surely that's going to pile pressure on the manager who's already lost, what was that, 7-0 to Chile at one point?
Stevie.
You got to go with Germany. Listen, Mexico's got some individual talent, but as a team, as a unit, they don't perform from the first minute to the 90th minute. Whereas Germany maybe don't have the big name stars there, but as a unit and as a team, they are smooth from the first minute to the 90th, and they show individual brilliance as well. So you can't see past Germany. No, I just don't see Mexico doing anything.
We're not really pleasing our Mexican viewers, are we?
Well, like you worry about that. Of course, we'll be discussing this at length on the next edition of ESPN FC. Check your local listings for times. Alexis Sanchez then leads Chile into the final of the Confederations Cup. Let's remind you that he is still an Arsenal player. However, reports in the UK media over the last 24 hours suggesting that Manchester City are very confident of getting him over the summer. John, where do you stand, Alexis Sanchez, and his future?
Not at Arsenal. That's where I stand on it. I think it's a shame because he's done ever so well for them, and I think they've been good for him in a way over this 3-year period of his career. But it's quite interesting. I was with Lee Dixon last week, who knows knows
Craig Burley.
Drop another name.
All right, OK. I'll contribute nothing more. But
You
right. Are you going to make it?
No, he said that the people that he still knows at Arsenal say that he's a difficult character in the dressing room and that he has been increasingly morose over the last season and that he's become quite difficult to control. Not a good influence on the training pitch either. So I think it's a natural parting of the ways, bearing in mind the season that Arsenal have just had.
But if you're Arsenal, wouldn't you prefer him to go to Bayern Munich, for example, than Manchester City?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you not make that happen?
Look, Arsenal don't have to sell the player. And the player doesn't have to move where he doesn't want to go. It really is a cat and mouse game now. But as bad an influence as he allegedly is, he has done a great job for Arsenal. And I think part of that will be down to the fact that his frustrations have grown.
Sure. By
the fact that Wenger stumbled across this new contract and wouldn't tell anybody, that new signings never arrived to really take Arsenal to the next level. And I think for a player like him, who is a top-level player, eventually that gets to you.
We've all been around players whose attitude on the training field or maybe inside the locker room was less than stellar. And we don't know that about Alexis
Sanchez. That happens
Sanchez.
to people after their careers as well.
Yes, I know. And yet, because those guys produce on the field, you learn on how to deal with these players and say, hey, I don't care what he does in here in the locker room. I don't care what he does in the training field. If this guy's going to score a goal that is going to help us win a game, that's who I want on the field. I don't want the goody-goody guy who's not going to score. I want the other guy who's going to help us win. That's the way it works. If Alexis Sanchez, I don't care how badly behaved he is, if he is badly behaved, Arsenal needs Alexis Sanchez. Simple.
And by the way, if we're talking about attitude, then I tell you what, you look at the way he played the game, his attitude was never in question on the park. So if his attitude was bad in training, it certainly wasn't reflected in his performance.
Maybe that's why the rest of them were bad. Listen, if Arsenal sell him to City, all that tells you is how desperate they are to get rid of this guy. Because they can easily ship him to somewhere else cheaper. They don't have to sell him to City. No. But if there's not really any more other takers and he goes to City, then you know this guy is a complete and utter nightmare.
So you get it, Stevie?
Absolutely get it, yeah. We've all played with guys that are a pain, and you figure out a way, as Ali said. But there comes a time when it affects the other 10, and we're all sitting here agreeing that he's been good on the field. He's been the guy that's actually taken the games by the scruff of the neck and tried to do everything. Yes. But maybe the reason the other 10 are struggling is because they just can't stand the sight of this
Stevie, Mesut Ozil doesn't wander around the pitch in some sort of dream world because...
I've played in teams where people won't pass the ball to another guy because they dislike them that much. So don't give me that face.
No, it's not a face. You know, of course.
It is, you just gave me it.
No, of course you know better than me.
But he's always got that face. You can't help it.
Are we really saying that Mesut Ozil has played like he has because of Alexis Sanchez's attitude?
No, I'm not picking any one individual out. But he could have had such a bad influence on the team that it's affecting everybody else.
We don't know that. We don't know that for sure.
Mesut Ozil, for example, right? You know he has to have a real good, strong mentality and a strong attitude, right? And he's a confident guy. You've maybe got 3 or 4 guys on that Arsenal team that are not quite as strong mentally and can't handle stuff that maybe is going on. That's just the way it is sometimes.
But we don't know that for sure. This is all allegations. And
Correct.
This is all
it's all Lee Dixon.
Well, this is what John brought to the table. It's John's fault.
My fault. But the confirmation will be if they actually let him go to City.
And I think the other thing to consider is that Arsenal have a track record of selling to rivals. In England, whereas other big clubs won't do business with specific rivals, Arsenal do.
Let's not kid ourselves here that if Alexis Sanchez said to Arsenal, oh, by the way, I'll accept the same terms I'm on now, that they would say no. I mean, problematic or not, they're not in the position just to let top players go because they're having enough trouble trying to get top players to come, right? So let's not kid ourselves that if he's on 100,000 a week, say, and they offer them, he said, I'll take 110, they won't do it. But it's not. It's the fact there's a big disparity between what these players are looking for. And Arsenal are not willing to pay it.
And it's the fact that Arsenal's ambitions don't appear to match his.
Correct. I think the nail went into the coffin for me the minute Wenger came out and said, I'm staying.
Right.
I'm automatically telling the top player who's not seeing players come out to help him, that's my decision made. Whether they offer me double the money or not, I'm going.
So if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm seeing Alexis Sanchez move up north to Manchester City, and then I'm seeing us linked to Lacazette for a lot of money, over £50 million, and apparently that bid has been turned down, if you believe reports. You just kind of feel a bit... It's deja vu with Arsenal,
Well, I'd like to think Arsenal are in for these players, and if you're an Arsenal fan, that you can stay upbeat about it. But, as you said, over the last few transfer windows, and we've sat here, and he's a great worker, but the signing, was it the January or was it the summer? Danny Welbeck came in.
Yeah.
The fans were all waiting. You know, so we've been in this boat before. The proof will be in the pudding.
What do you think, John? Lacazette, does that get you excited?
Only moderately. I think, you know, if you were to say Lacazette or Aubameyang, I would be more excited by Aubameyang as an Arsenal fan. And I think when you do business with Lyon, you have to expect to pay top dollar because Jean-Michel Aulas, the chairman there, is renowned for scraping every last penny or cent or euro out of the people he negotiates with. He's the sort of French version of Daniel Levy, I think, in that regard.
We talk about Aubameyang. We discussed him yesterday with Raf, didn't we? When we were talking about the fact that it doesn't look like he's now going to PSG. He could go to China for a massive chunk of money. Where would you stand, China or Arsenal, Stevie?
Listen, this is absolutely an individual's decision. You know, if the guy's interested more in the money, then you go to China. If he's still interested in football, if he's still in love with football, then he goes to Arsenal. Because he's not going to get free bob at Arsenal. He's going to get good money. It's just that the money in China is incredible.
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to make it about the money when they're throwing numbers like 40 million net. I mean, when you think about that, you're like, wait a minute. This is different. This is a different reality altogether. And you have that information in front of you. I don't think any of us, if they would put that in front of us, would say, you know what, I really love the game. I'm going to stay in the Premier League. No, look, if they're putting this chunk of money in front of you, see you later. I'm out.
Questions you don't think you're going to ask too often. China or Arsenal.
Yeah, that's true.
But you know what? All the nonsense we hear, my client wants to play Champions League football.
Yeah.
And let's be honest about it here. You know, most of them and most people want to make more money. But as Stevie said, he's in the prime of his career. If he goes to China, he takes the money, he cuts himself off. It's as simple as that.
OK, well, just a reminder, 8 weeks to go until the transfer window closes.
Lovely.
To keep up to date with all the latest news as and when it happens, as Janusz breaking it down, go over to espnfc.com and click on Transfer Talk.
OK, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
OK. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
We know the lineup, don't we, for the under-21s. It's Germany against Spain. Spain have been so impressive throughout this tournament, as they have many of the youth competitions over the years. For England, though, John, it was so close, but yet so far once again. Beaten by Germany in a penalty shootout. So I think it was very difficult for anyone who saw the match to put up any sort of argument that England deserved to go through to the final. Where do we stand on England technically and their development and building stars for the future?
Well, there's a degree of same old about it, particularly given the nature of the opposition or the identity of the opponents. I do think there's something, though, stirring at St George's Park, maybe belatedly. There's been a huge investment there. And it's probably no coincidence that in the space of a couple of weeks, the under-20s have done what they did in the World Cup. My apologies to you, sir. And then the under-21s have also...
Don't touch me like that again.
OK, sorry. And the under-21s have also made a bit of a splash as well.
Did they make a splash?
Well, I think they didn't just go out limply, did they, which we're so used to seeing. So I think there are seeds, grounds for very basic optimism, but you're not seeing me jumping up and down.
But you are being more optimistic maybe than some. Like, you're talking about seeds?
Yeah, I think one has to be moderately optimistic in circumstances such as these, because otherwise, when can you be? Because it's not very often that you get under-20 World Cup winners followed by semi-final of a European under-21 championship in quick succession. My worry is that will they train on? So the last time that the under-20s, for example, made any sort of impression on the World Cup was 20 years ago. It was the sort of David Unsworth generation. And I think I'm right in saying that only 3 of those players ever played full international football. So how relevant it actually is, I think, is a moot point.
Are you seeing seeds, Scotsman?
No. Listen, the history books will tell you that very few of these players get any farther. So why is it going to change this time?
Just give up now.
That's it.
Hey,
go home.
That's it.
Go home.
Thank you very much, boys. More from us tomorrow. Till then, goodbye. A full couch today for Extra Time. John Champion is here. Champers, why are you here?
Because you asked me to come here.
Perfect.
Lovely. Good.
I didn't.
Great. No way to sell it.
Bravo just showed class is permanent. Was his poor club form down to City's inconsistent showing last season?
Well, he's the one not making the saves.
Say that again.
Someone did speculate that he might have made as many saves today as he did in the entire season.
No, that's
Manchester
Twitter
City.
rubbish.
Well,
That's social media rubbish, John.
Oh. Well, we thrive on social media rubbish on this programme.
Following you on Twitter is social media rubbish.
How dare you? A lot of thought goes into that.
Oh, my God. Here's a picture of the game I'm at. Brilliant. Thanks for that.
I won't bother in future, then.
It's been noted you did, when you first joined Twitter,
Yes.
you've taken a lot of pictures. It's amazing.
Well, I'd only just learnt to use the camera, so I thought, why not?
He doesn't have to follow you, does he?
No, that's a good
That
point,
is a
actually.
great
That's a
point.
very good point, Steve, yeah.
Says the man who hasn't got a clue who
Like the telly, just turn it off if you don't like what's
This is
on
the
it.
man who tweeted to Adele, follow me, I don't care if you support Spurs.
You know what? You
You just see that he said
believe
turn the
anything.
telly off.
You believe it, innit? Nobody tells you.
1967.
Seriously. As if.
As if.
As if.
Right, goodness, questions.
Turn the telly off.
Should the best player... Right, team, Steve, you're a coach. Should the best player on the
Coach
team
driver.
always take the first penalty in a shootout?
No. No, the guy you think and expect to score is usually the guy you hold back for the biggest and most important penalty, which is usually the 5th one, because it's either to win it or actually to lose it for you. So normally, certainly that's what I would do. I would hold them back to the 5th.
Craig, famously, you almost got a hat-trick of penalties in the Premier League. The first player to do so, you missed, though, the last one.
Yeah, nobody's done it.
No?
Was it Aguero missed a couple of years
You're
ago?
trying to put yourself in the same company.
No, he is. I missed the 3rd one, yeah.
Where would you prefer to take a penalty in a shootout? As the designated penalty
Around
taker?
3rd.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not first
Because
or
if you
fifth?
missed-
Awkward.
No, because if you missed, you haven't completely stuffed it, I wouldn't imagine.
Right.
You did today.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want your best penalty taker taking one after Nani, I don't think, on today's evidence, would you?
Nanny just looked
You're very well dressed today, Stephen.
Oh, very nice.
How many
Very
ties have you
Very
got, by
nice
the
of
way?
you to notice.
How many ties have you got? Loads.
This is it.
Well, it matches very well.
This is it.
It does match, which makes me think it's somebody dressed him today. Mrs. Nicol.
Well, you say that as if she does dress me every day.
Have a word.
Why is it Liverpool FC only rely on Southampton and English-based players, Stephen? Why aren't the scouts doing their job scouting?
Do you know what? I'd
like
love
more-
to know the answer to that myself. It is a little... It's just a little too much, isn't it? Going to Southampton all the
Well,
time.
it's cheap on the train. That's where you just get down there. Bobbins, get a couple of players, come back, get Nathaniel Klein, give me Lallana, give me Lovren,
Yeah.
give me Sadio Mane.
Ricky Lambert, didn't he go there?
Aye.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadio Mane.
90 million quid, isn't it?
Wow.
They've paid Southampton for players recently, and now they seem to be altering their approach, and they're buying ex-Southampton players, but from other clubs, like Oxlade-Chamberlain, aren't they? So they're letting them go somewhere and then buying them.
Ask Stevie about Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Oh. Can I ask you about Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain? I don't know why, but the
Tell you
Ox.
what. I'll tell you what. He can stay at Arsenal and we'll take Sanchez. How about that?
Can't see that from
Well,
you.
well, that's an even trade.
Right.
I'll tell you what. Do you know what? I'd rather have Giroud than Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Wow, would you prefer Lukaku?
No, I'm not sure.
Lukaku!
Right, I know you've been out for dinner with...
Why would
here we
Liverpool
go.
sign?
He's been out for dinner with Lee Dixon.
He's been name-dropping, hasn't he?
Yeah. So have you been out for dinner with anybody else that's told you is Van Dijk going to Liverpool or not?
Oh, that's a yeah. He just didn't want to say anything.
I saw someone last week who may or may not be on the management team at Southampton who said that they're still hopeful that they might be able to keep him for another season.
Oh, that's a lot of mites and mays, but okay.
Like
Could possibly.
Right.
Go ahead.
Would Steve Nicol be willing to bet that United finish higher than Liverpool?
I'll tell you what. You give me the 400 million they've got to spend, and I'll get a team that will finish higher than Liverpool.
Why are you so angry?
Well, it's just some clever so-and-so that
You
they're
finished
going to
above them last
they go out
year.
and buy people for 100 million. Liverpool can't do that. They've got to actually use some scouting and use some brains.
Yeah.
Not just go and buy the best player available at 100 million.
Yeah.
Let's go to Southampton.
Yeah, like Spurs have done, like Leicester.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the guy could probably be right. Listen, Mourinho's... How many windows has he got left? What did he say when he came? I need 3 transfer windows. So he's going to spend 200 last year, he'll spend another 200 this year, and then in the next one he'll spend another 200, so they've spent 600 million. And if you spend 600 million, pal, whoever you are, and you don't finish above Liverpool, then you want your backside slapped.
Oh, hello.
That'll get cut out because this is too long.
How could we possibly go from there?
On that note, ESPN FC returns tomorrow. The boys, of course, talking about Germany, Mexico. We'll be with you 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN News.